For decades, the world looked at Germany with a mixture of envy and admiration. It was the unshakable engine of Europe, a country where engineering was treated like a religion, and where the government budget was always balanced. It was the ultimate example of stability in a chaotic world. While Southern Europe struggled with debt and America struggled with political polarization, Germany just kept working. It kept manufacturing, it kept exporting. The phrase "made in Germany" was not just a label, it was a global currency of trust. It meant that you were buying the best. Mercedes, BMW, Siemens, Bosch, these giants dominated the globe. Germany was the world's wallet, the paymaster of the European Union, and the fourth largest economy on earth. But stories of invincibility often hide the cracks in the foundation. And today, those cracks have turned into canyons. As we move through 2025, the German economic miracle has officially ended. The headlines are terrifying. Industrial output is crashing. The chemical industry, the backbone of German manufacturing, is fleeing the country. The trains, once the pride of the nation, are now delayed so often that the Swiss railway system refuses to let late German trains enter their country to protect their own schedule. That is the level of humiliation we are talking about. Germany has entered a new era, an era of deindustrialization, an era where the middle class is shrinking and the political fringes are rising. The country has reclaimed a title it fought hard to lose in the late 1990s, the sick man of Europe. But Berlin is not going down without a fight. In a move that shocked financial markets, the German government has decided to rip up its own rulebook. They are abandoning decades of financial discipline. They are suspending the famous debt brake, and they are placing a massive historic bet on the table, 500 billion euros. This is a stimulus package so large it is hard to comprehend. It is equal to 15% of the entire German gross domestic product. It is a desperate attempt to modernize a dying industrial base, to fix a broken energy system, and to buy Germany a future in the 21st century. But is it too little? Too late? Can you solve structural problems just by throwing money at them? And what happens if this gamble fails? If the German engine stops, it does not just hurt Germany, it pulls the entire European Union down with it. To understand why the crash is so painful, you have to understand how high Germany was flying. For the last 30 years, Germany enjoyed a golden age, but this golden age was not built on magic. It was built on a very specific, very lucky set of geopolitical circumstances. German prosperity relied on a business model that can be summarized in one sentence. Import cheap energy and raw materials from autocracies, add value with German engineering, and export high-quality products to the world, especially China. Let us break down the three pillars of this model, because all three have collapsed at the exact same time. The first pillar was cheap Russian energy. For decades, German industry had a secret weapon: natural gas. It flowed from Siberia through the Nord Stream pipelines under the Baltic Sea, directly into German factories. This gas was cheap, incredibly cheap. It allowed German chemical giants like BASF to produce fertilizer, plastics, and pharmaceuticals at a cost that no one in America or Asia could beat. It powered the steel mills and the glass factories. German politicians called this change through trade. They believed that buying gas from Russia would make Russia peaceful. We now know that was a catastrophic miscalculation. The second pillar was the Chinese market. As China rose to become a superpower, it needed machines, it needed cars, it needed tools to build its cities, and Germany was happy to sell them. For 15 years, China was the engine of German profits. Volkswagen sold 40% of its cars in China. The German economy became addicted to Chinese demand. When the Chinese middle class got richer, German workers got richer. The third pillar was American security. Germany spent very little on its own military. Why would it? The United States provided a security umbrella through NATO. This allowed Berlin to take billions of euros that would have gone into tanks and missiles, and instead invest them into social welfare and industrial subsidies. It was a perfect system: low costs, high sales, and low defense spending. It resulted in massive trade surpluses. Germany was exporting so much that it was accumulating hundreds of billions of euros every year. The government ran a budget surplus. They called it the Black Zero. It became a point of national pride. We do not borrow money, they said. We live within our means. But while they were celebrating their full bank accounts, they were ignoring the rot beneath the floorboards. The first pillar to fall was energy. And to be honest, this was a crisis of Germany's own making. Long before Vladimir Putin invaded Ukraine, Germany made a decision that historians will likely view as one of the greatest economic mistakes of the modern era: the energy transition. Following the Fukushima disaster in Japan in 2011, Chancellor Angela Merkel decided to shut down all of Germany's nuclear power plants. These plants provided clean, cheap, and reliable baseload electricity. But due to political pressure, they were phased out. So, what replaced them? Germany spent billions on wind and solar. But the sun does not always shine in Berlin, and the wind does not always blow. To back up the grid, they became even more dependent on Russian natural gas. They effectively traded energy independence for dependence on Moscow. Then came February 2022. Russian tanks rolled into Ukraine. The Nord Stream pipelines were sabotaged, and overnight, The cheap gas that fueled the German industrial machine vanished. The consequences were immediate and brutal. Energy prices in Germany spiked by 400% at the peak. For a chemical company, energy is not just electricity for the lights. Gas is a raw material. It is an ingredient. Suddenly, making ammonia, steel, or aluminum in Germany became mathematically impossible. Companies started shutting down production lines, but they did not just close them temporarily. They started moving them. BASF, the largest chemical producer in the world, announced massive cuts at its headquarters in Ludwigshafen. Where did they send the investment instead? To China and the United States. Why? Because energy in the United States is 4 or 5 times cheaper than in Germany. This is what economists call deindustrialization. It is not just a recession where things slow down and then bounce back. This is structural. Once a chemical plant moves to Texas or Guangdong, it does not come back. The jobs are gone forever. If chemicals and steel are the muscles of the German economy, the automotive industry is its heart. The car industry employs roughly 800,000 people directly in Germany, and millions more indirectly. Volkswagen, Mercedes-Benz, BMW, Porsche. These are not just brands, they are national monuments. But the German car industry is facing its own Kodak moment. They perfected the internal combustion engine. They made the best diesel and petrol cars in the world. But they grew arrogant. They ignored the shift to electric vehicles for too long. They laughed at Tesla. Now, they are not laughing. China, the market that made them rich, has turned against them. Chinese consumers are no longer buying German cars. They are buying Chinese electric vehicles from companies like BYD, NIO, and Xiaomi. These Chinese cars are technologically advanced, they have better software, and they are 30% cheaper than their German rivals. In 2023, for the first time, BYD outsold Volkswagen in China. This was an earthquake in the boardroom of Wolfsburg, but it gets worse. China is now exporting those cars to Europe. The German automakers are being squeezed on both sides. In China, they are losing market share. In Europe, they are facing a flood of cheap Chinese imports. The transition to electric vehicles destroys the German advantage. An electric car has far fewer moving parts than a combustion car. It does not need a complex German transmission or a masterfully engineered German engine. It needs a battery and software, and currently China dominates the battery market, and Silicon Valley dominates the software. Germany is struggling to compete in either. This has led to a terrifying reality. In late 2024, Volkswagen announced that it was considering closing factories inside Germany for the first time in its 87-year history. This was unthinkable just 5 years ago. While the private sector battles for survival, the public sector is collapsing under the weight of its own neglect. Remember the policy of the Black Zero, the refusal to borrow money. It turns out there is a difference between saving money and neglecting maintenance. For 20 years, Germany essentially stopped investing in itself. The result is visible to anyone who visits the country. The infrastructure is crumbling. Bridges on the Autobahn are being closed to heavy trucks because they are structurally unsound. Schools have leaky roofs. But the most embarrassing failure is the digital infrastructure. Germany ranks near the bottom of developed nations for fiber internet connections. Mobile data coverage is spotty outside major cities. You can drive across the border into Poland or Lithuania and get faster 5G speeds than in downtown Berlin. The bureaucracy is stuck in the 1980s. This is not a joke. Many government offices still rely on fax machines. If you want to register a business, build a wind turbine, or apply for a permit, you have to deal with mountains of paper. It takes an average of 7 years to get approval to build a wind farm in Germany. How can you have an energy transition when you cannot get a permit to build the energy source? This bureaucracy is suffocating innovation. Startups are leaving Germany because it is simply too hard to do business. They are going to London, to Silicon Valley, or to Singapore. Germany is losing its future because it is too obsessed with following the rules of the past. Even if Germany fixed the energy crisis and solved the bureaucracy, it faces a problem that money cannot easily solve. It is running out of people. Germany has one of the oldest populations in the world. The baby boomer generation is retiring en masse. Every year, 400,000 more people leave the labor market than enter it. Walk through any German town, and you see help wanted signs everywhere. Restaurants are closing early because they have no waiters. Buses are cancelled because there are no drivers. But the real pain is in the factories. There are currently 2 million open job positions in Germany that cannot be filled. This shortage of skilled labor is a massive brake on growth. You cannot expand your economy if you do not have anyone to do the work. To maintain its workforce, Germany needs 400,000 qualified immigrants every single year for the next decade. But attracting them is difficult. High taxes, a complex language, and a rising anti-immigrant sentiment make Germany less attractive to top talent compared to English-speaking countries like the United States, Canada, or Australia. This labor shortage creates a vicious cycle. As the population ages, the pension and healthcare costs explode, but there are fewer workers to pay the taxes to fund those costs. This puts even more pressure on the federal budget. This brings us to the present moment. The German government, a coalition led by Chancellor Olaf Scholz, has looked at this perfect storm: energy crisis, industrial collapse, crumbling infrastructure, and labor shortages. and they have realized that doing nothing is a death sentence. The old dogma of austerity is dead. The government has announced a massive pivot, a plan to mobilize 500 billion euros in state funding and incentives over the coming years. But where is this money coming from? Technically, the German constitution forbids the government from running large deficits. This rule is called the debt brake. It was written into the constitution to prevent politicians from spending recklessly. To get around this, the government is using creative accounting. They are setting up special funds or shadow budgets that officially sit outside the normal federal budget. They did this for the military after the Ukraine invasion, creating a 100 billion euro fund for the army. Now, they are applying the same logic to the economy. So, what is the plan for this 500 billion euros? Part 1 is the green transformation. The government wants to subsidize the electricity price for heavy industry. They plan to pay the difference between the market price and a competitive price to keep companies, like BASF and ThyssenKrupp in Germany. They are pouring billions into hydrogen infrastructure, hoping that hydrogen can replace Russian gas as the fuel of the future. Part 2 is the chip industry. Germany wants to become a leader in semiconductors. They have handed out 10 billion euros in subsidies to Intel to build a factory in Magdeburg, and another 5 billion to TSMC for a plant in Dresden. They are trying to buy their way into the high-tech future. Part 3 is infrastructure overhaul. Billions are earmarked for Deutsche Bahn to fix the rails, and for digital infrastructure to finally get rid of the fax machines. The logic is simple. Borrow money now to save the industrial base. If the industry survives and transforms, it will generate the tax revenue in the future to pay back the debt. If the industry dies, Germany dies. So, the risk of not acting is greater than the risk of debt. This sounds like a solid plan on paper, but in reality it is incredibly risky. The first risk is inflation. Pumping 500 billion euros into an economy that is already struggling with supply constraints could reignite inflation. If prices soar again, the European Central Bank will have to keep interest rates high. High interest rates are poison for the construction industry and for business investment. The second risk is efficiency. Governments are notoriously bad at picking winners. Subsidizing old industries to keep them alive is often a waste of money. It creates zombie companies that are dependent on state aid. Is it really smart to pay billions to keep steel production in Germany, or should Germany accept that energy-intensive industries belong elsewhere? The subsidy for Intel is controversial. 10 billion euros for one factory, that is 3 million euros of taxpayer money for every single job created at that plant. Is that a wise use of capital? But the biggest risk is political. This spending spree is controversial inside Germany. The Constitutional Court has already struck down previous attempts to bypass the debt brake. The government is walking a legal tightrope. If the courts block this funding, the entire economic rescue plan collapses overnight. And then there is the European dimension. For years, Germany lectured other countries like Greece, Italy, and France about fiscal responsibility. Do not spend more than you earn, Berlin said. Now, Germany is doing exactly what it told others not to do. This changes the dynamic of the Eurozone. If Germany, the anchor of stability, starts running massive deficits, what stops Italy or France from doing the same? We could see a race to the bottom, where every country subsidizes its own industries with borrowed money. This could destabilize the euro currency itself. Furthermore, Germany is the largest contributor to the EU budget. If the German economy shrinks, who pays for Europe? Who bails out the next crisis? A weak Germany means a weak Europe. The geopolitical implications are massive. A Europe without a strong German economy is a Europe that cannot project power, cannot support Ukraine, and cannot compete with China or the United States. So, what is the verdict? Germany is currently performing a high-wire act without a safety net. The old business model is gone, and it is never coming back. Russian gas will not return. China will not stop being a competitor. And the days of easy American security guarantees are fading. The 500 billion euro gamble is an attempt to build a new model, a model based on green energy, high-tech manufacturing, and a more active state. It is an admission that the free market alone cannot solve this crisis. But money is only fuel. It is not the engine. The engine is the spirit of innovation, the willingness to take risks, and the ability to adapt. Germany has become a risk-averse society. It is a country of insurers and engineers, not unparalleled innovators. To survive this century, Germany needs more than just euros. It needs a cultural revolution. It needs to slash the red tape that strangles new ideas. It needs to welcome immigrants to fill its factories. It needs to stop resting on the laurels of the 20th century. If this gamble works, we could see a German renaissance, a cleaner, more digital, more resilient economy that leads Europe into the future. But if it fails, the consequences are grim. We are looking at a long, slow decline. A museum economy where tourists come to look at the remnants of a great industrial past, while the real innovation happens in Shenzhen, Austin, or Bangalore. Germany has reinvented itself before. After 1945, it rose from the ashes. After 1990, it integrated the East. It has a history of resilience. But this challenge is different. This is not about rebuilding what was lost. It is about building something entirely new in a world that is becoming more hostile every day. The 500 billion euros are on the table, the wheel is spinning, and the whole world is watching to see where the ball lands. What do you think? Can Germany turn the ship around, or is the era of European industrial dominance officially over? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below, and if you want to understand the economic forces shaping our world, make sure to subscribe. Thanks for watching.